I have a friend of mine who also uses the Quad Cortex, and he actually recently asked me about how scenes work. He stated that, it's a little confusing to nail it down. So I figured, now would be a good time to make a YouTube video on it. And if anyone is having any issues with scenes or even stomp mode or preset mode or any of the different modes you can change within that little pyramid right there, this is going to be a good video for you. And this is something essential that you're going to need to know if you want to truly unlock the entire potential of the Quad Cortex. So stick around and let's dive deep into it. So I'm gonna do my best to improv this. I don't really have a script, so I'm gonna try to cover as much as I can, but I figure this video is gonna be helpful for a lot of Quad Cortex users who are just getting familiar with it and don't know the ins and outs of it. So hopefully this helps you out. First things first, I want to go over the signal chain really fast. So I just have my guitar output right over here going straight into input 1 of the Quad Cortex, and I have 2 XLR outputs going into my Focusrite 18i20, and no software or anything on my computer. It's just monitoring straight into the speakers over there. So let me go ahead and point out really fast that we have the input set to input 1, and then we just have a multi-out going. So it's nothing special. We're gonna start with an empty preset here. So what we'll do is we'll create a very, very basic preset. So let's go ahead and give it an amp. And to really showcase what scenes are all about, I want to go ahead and have a clean as well as a dirty amp to start with. So let's go ahead and pick, to widen the spectrum, let's give it something a little heavy here. So we'll do 100 watt 606. Let me turn them off because you can hear that my speakers don't like it without a cab emulation. So let's go ahead and put a cab emulation on there, and we'll just put something basic like something with V30s, diesel front 30. So here you should already have a sound. Okay. To start with a very basic gate, I like to go ahead and put a noise gate on the input 1, and you do that by holding the input 1 button over there, and you can just engage it right over here. I'll turn it up so it's a nice tight sound. Okay, great. So let's see. Let's quickly go over, what a preset is in the Quad Cortex. And this is the best way I like to explain to everybody who first starts using it. Consider a preset, which is what this is going to be an entire rig. So this is an entire rig over here. It's basically what you would have in a real life scenario. You would have stomp pedals, your amp, your cabinet, and then some post effects of any kind. So, in a live situation, the reason why you don't want to switch between presets is because there is a little bit of a buffer in terms of a delay when switching from one preset to the other. That's where scenes come in. What a scene does is it basically changes parameters within the preset. So a good example of that would be you would have a clean scene where it's a completely clean sound, and then you can have a different scene that's a dirtier, like a heavier scene, like kind of like this right now. And then you can utilize some effects to go into different scenes depending on how you want to do it. And then we're also going to be talking about a hybrid mode too, which is something I use when I play live with the Quad Cortex. So anyway, let's go ahead and build an entire rig, something that we would use in a real life scenario. So let's go ahead and put just a nice compressor on there for the cleans. Something I really like is using an octaver. And you know what? I actually really like the Pliny octaver. So let's go to Pliny. Now let's put the octaver in there. Okay, we'll turn them off for now. Not that it really matters, but and then something as simple as, you know what? Let's go ahead and output this to row 3. And in case you guys need to know, the reason why I don't go into row 2 is because row 1 and row 3, they share different processors or they don't share, excuse me, but they use different processors in the Quad Cortex. So if you're going to go into 1 and the 2, it's going to max out one of the processors, and then you're going to run into CPU usage issues, meaning you're going to overclock the CPU, which is something you don't want to do. Hence why you go into 1 into 3, and then you can also do 2 into 4. Just a little pro tip for you. So now that we're going into row 3, we're going to set this one to multiple outputs so we can hear. everything. We're good to go. Now, generally, at the very end of the chain, what people like to do is put a delay. And again, we'll just, I'll change it to a stereo analog delay just to make it as basic as possible. And then we'll put a reverb. And obviously you can do this however you want. You don't have to do it like me. Okay. Turn those off. Let me set the tempo a little faster. That way you can hear the delay a little better. All right, so now let's just say this is our complete rig over here, okay? You'll save it, you'll name it, whatever. Okay, now, the very first thing I like to do to get this preset gig ready is I want to go ahead and set the stomp boxes. So what I'll do is I'll go over here, and in case you didn't know, to click over here, it'll change between preset, scene, and stomp, depending on how you have it configured, which we'll go into in a bit. And also, you can also push these two foot switches right here at the same time to switch between the three as well. Okay, so for now, let's go to the stomp mode, which basically just acts like a stomp box. And what I want to do is I want to set each pedal, essentially, quote unquote pedal or amp, into a stomp box. I generally like to do it in order, so meaning because this is first in my chain, which is the compressor, I'll set that to stomp box A. And to do that, you'll go ahead and click on it, and you see that little button right there where it shows a foot switch. Click on that, and now it's asking you which button do you want to assign that pedal to. And what latching and momentary means is is basically an on-off switch for that pedal. Meaning as soon as you hit it, it'll stay on. You hit it again, it'll turn off until you push the button again. Momentary, what momentary means is it'll only engage while your foot is on the button. As soon as you let go of the button, it's gonna turn off. But generally for something like a compressor, I like to leave it on latching based on whatever preference you want, and I'll set that to A. Okay, so now if we exit that, you can see that the green light, which is signifying the color of the block over there, it's dimly lit, and if you push it again, it'll glow brightly, and it'll show over here that that it's engaged. So not too confusing. If you swipe up from the bottom over here and go up, oops, let me do it with my right hand, it'll probably be better. Great. Let me zoom in a little better. There you go. So that'll show you what this is called is the gig view. When you swipe up from the bottom to go up, this is always called gig view. And gig view just kind of shows you, a better layout of what's engaged in terms of scenes or stomp boxes. So you can either click on the screen, but obviously you're not gonna do that when playing live. So when you push, the stomp box here, it'll show you that's coming on and off. Pretty easy. So let's go ahead and set the other ones. Click on your my octaver, click on the pedal assignment, and then let's go B. Get out of there. So now you can see it's a yellow light. Boom. Good to go. Okay, now here's something I learned recently that I think is really, really cool. I didn't know you could do this until recently. So, you see how we have two different amps here? One clean, one dirty. So, I found out that you can assign both amps into one stomp box in stomp box mode. And let's go and do that now. Keep it latching. If I set it to C, which basically just turns the clean amp on and off. But if I go into the dirty amp and set that to the same button, okay, you see how it's turning on and off? If they're both off and if you push it, it's gonna turn both of them on and off, which is something generally people don't want. But if you turn one of them off and then leave it the way it is, it'll alternate between the clean and dirty sound. And let's go and demonstrate. So now we're on the clean. And this is dirty. Okay, very cool. And then if you go into gig mode, it'll show you that there's multiple devices and, it'll show you what's being engaged. I think you can go into a little more detail. You can name it something else. And if you click over here, it'll show you what's in the one button. If you click this button here, it'll go ahead and delete that extra assignment. Like, so let's just say if I were to hit this button, it would take out the EVH 6L6 amp. So There you go. The cab is something, I generally want to leave on forever. And we'll go ahead and, whoops, assign the the delay to G. I usually like it on the bottom, left and right, me personally. And then we'll put the reverb on H. All right, so now in Stompbox mode, we have a full gig. All right, so that's essentially what stomp mode is all about. All right, now let's go into scene mode. So what scene mode does is, think about it as in scene mode, every parameter and every amp and pedal and even almost every setting is modifiable and savable in a scene, okay? So this is really cool if you have set sounds that you want to use throughout your gig and you want to change between them during a song. I want to go from a clean and a polyoctaver into a dirty with no polyoctaver, but I want the reverb on for scene B, okay? So it might sound confusing, but let's go over it and I'll show you what I mean. So you can't delete scenes. These are going to stay the way they are, but you can definitely modify them a little better as you go along. So we'll start with the default scene, okay? Let's just say in scene A, I prefer just a very, very clean tone and nothing else. Maybe a touch of reverb or whatever. So the very first thing I do is, for the clean amp, you click on it, and the on and off, that's something I want to be assigned to a scene. Meaning, I want the clean amp to be on in scene A, but I don't want it on in scene B, and I don't want it on scene C, and so forth. So what I'll do is, to assign any of these parameters to a scene, what you have to do is you have to hang on to it, you have to hold your finger down on it. So because I'm going to use the on and off button as assigned to the scene, I'll put my finger and I'll hold it there. Now when I lift off, you'll see here, if you could see it, you'll see that there's those four little squares. That means it's assigned to a scene. And generally, if you do it to anything else, so let's just turn it on so you can see it better. Like even the mid here, if I just hold on the mid, you can see there's the A, B, C, D, meaning that it's assigned to a scene, and it's white now, meaning this parameter is assigned to scene A. So if you hold it again, you can go ahead and just unassign it. So for now, we'll leave that the way it is. And let me give you guys a nice zoom in look here. Perfect. All right, so now we have the power button assigned to scene A, right? And it'll show you what scene you are over here. It's showing that's in scene A. So meaning anytime I go to scene A, the amp will be on, okay? Now, let's just say in scene B, I don't want the amp on. So I can actually go to scene B here, and now we're in scene B, and it shows that the amp is off, and you could turn it on and off, okay? But we're gonna leave it off. So now, just to show you, when I am in, let me turn this amp off real quick. When I'm in scene B, you could see that the clean amp is not on. Whoops. Clean amp is not on, but if I go to scene A, it turns on now, right? So you can do that for everything. So let's just say, like we mentioned, I want a very clean amp sound for scene A. So I don't want to mess with the parameters. I like them the way they are. These are not going to change no matter what scene you go to, because none of them are assigned to a scene, right? Now the reverb, same thing. I'll hold the button. It's assigned to C. I don't want any reverb on scene A. Cool. So now this is my totally clean amp. And you can also view it in gig view. And what we can do is we can rename it. Let's name it Pure Clean. And we'll make it blue. I think blue, actually make it green. Green, I think, is a nice, pure, clean look to it. Cool. So now anytime we go here, this is the sound you're always gonna get. Great. So now, you know what? In scene B, I wanna have a nice heavy reverb with the plenty octaver and the compressor, okay? So what we gotta do is first make sure that the power on all those pedals, that there is a scene mode activated. So this one is. So I go to scene B. I could go and turn it on, and then scene B, it'll show that it's on. If I were to go to A and see how it says that it's off, I can even leave it on there. And then anytime I go to scene A, it's gonna remain on. But I don't want it on in scene A. So I'll go ahead and do that. And see, once I go to scene B, the compressor is on. Now you see that the clean amp didn't come on, right? So what we have to do is we have to assign it to scene B and make sure it's on in scene B. So now it is on both scenes. I hope that makes sense. Now, like we mentioned, I want the plenty octaver on. So I'll go ahead and assign the scene. It is on scene B, perfect. Oh, I have to turn the amp on, of course. Cool, so now it's on. And this is the sound I want. We have it on scene B for the reverb. Let's see how it sounds. Okay, hopefully you guys can hear that. Okay, and then, you know, once I'm satisfied with that scene, what I'll go ahead and do is I'll name it, whatever I want, octave clean. Okay, and this one I'll give it a slightly different color. I'll give it a yellow just to, you know, differentiate that there's pure clean and octave clean. So going from pure clean to the octave clean. And the transition is seamless. That's why you want to use scenes when you're playing live. You don't want to, you know, go through presets. It's better to go through presets, I think, in between songs when you have a break. Then you can kind of cue up a completely different rig. But in this case, you know, I'm playing within the one song, and I want to switch sometimes between pure clean to the octave clean. Okay, so let's keep going. In scene C now, I want to have a dirty sound, right? So now we're in scene C, and as you can tell, it says scene right there. That's how you know what mode you're in. Now, you know, I want to go ahead and assign the dirty amp on scene C. Cab we don't touch. You know what? Let's even add an overdrive, and one of my favorites is the Tube Screamer 808, which in this case it's the green 808. Go here in scene mode, assign it. Now, if you don't assign anything to the scene, then, you know, it's going to be on and off or whatever, all right? Okay. Now, see, I don't want the reverb on scene C. I'd rather just have like a nice distortion sound with no effects. And you know what's funny is because we have the reverb on and off assigned to a scene already, I don't technically even have to go into the menu of the effect. I could just turn it off here, and the Quad Cortex will save, you know, that state because you have the on and off of that effect assigned to the scene already. So if I go to B, which we had assigned to already, okay, and you know what? Another good point here is we just added 808, but it didn't turn off when we went to scene B because it's not assigned to scene B in terms of being on and off. So yeah, I want it off on scene B, and it just did it because I double clicked it. See how it comes on in scene C, but not on scene B because I turned it off. So yeah, and like I mentioned, if you turn something on and off, if it's already been assigned while in scene mode, the on and off parameter, when you switch back and forth, it'll automatically turn it on and off. See? A wasn't on. And of course, you can always do it when you're jogging through the scenes over here, scene E, F, whatever. Okay. And this is how I like it. So obviously what we would do is we would go ahead and set this to whatever you want. Distortion. I like distortion. Make it red because I think, you know, red coincides good with a distortion sound. And that's essentially what scenes are all about. So while I'm playing live, I could transition between scenes seamlessly. There's gonna be no delay or anything. Okay, now let's talk about one of my favorite modes. This is gonna be the final part of the video, which is the hybrid mode. Now, if you go over here where it says scene and hold your button down, now it takes you to mode configuration. And what this is about is you get to customize how you want to stack A, B, C, D with E, F, G, H. And you could basically assign the top row and the bottom row to be something different. Now, a pro tip, when I play live, right before I start playing, what I do personally is I get the preset and you can drag it and delete it. Now, what that does is when you're shifting between the modes, it doesn't accidentally go into preset mode, which could be very helpful because sometimes, you know, I don't want to accidentally be in preset mode and then hit a button and it changes the preset mid-song and then you're completely screwed because now you're on a completely different sound, which is not going with the music. So I generally like to leave it off when I'm playing live. And if you ever want to bring it back, you just hit the plus button here and it comes right back. Okay? Or let's leave it in for this example. This is what I like to do in hybrid mode. This is what hybrid mode is called. So you grab the scene, you hold it, and you could drag it right above any of these modes. And let's just do it to the stomp mode, for example. Sorry if you can't see. Now, as you can tell, the scene mode and stomp mode are in hybrid mode, meaning, let me zoom in so you can see the colors a little better. So you see how the top 4 buttons are in yellow and the bottom are in blue? That's signifying that you're going to be in hybrid mode. So let's go ahead and accept that. And now it'll show over here that you're in hybrid mode. And what hybrid mode is, if we go into gig view, excuse me. So it puts the scenes on top and then you can assign 4 pedals in stomp mode on the bottom. So if we go earlier, and the quad cortex remembers what setting you're in. Like, so if I'm in hybrid mode and I set new pedals over here, it'll remember it when you go back to hybrid mode. And if you just go to plain stomp mode and scene mode, it'll remember how your layout was too. So in this case, I have an empty scene here. I'm not going to use it for now, but you can assign whatever scene you want. You know, I noticed that the compressor is gone, so we'll assign this to E. And I'll assign, you know what, let's put the distortion in F. Cool. So now if I go back into gig mode, I have those scenes that we made earlier. There's the octave. Turn the distortion off. Pure clean. And then there's the pure distortion. Okay. And then as you have the scenes on top, you can have your stomp boxes on the bottom. So it's useful if you have like just the plain distortion sound in one of the scenes, and as you're playing the rhythm part, you want to kick it up with your analog delay and your mind hold, then all you have to do is just do it in stomp mode. Or, you know, if that's not something you're into, you could just, you know, take this out, hold it, and now it goes back to how it was. And then if you go into your gig mode, everything you set should be the way it is here. Right now we're in stomp mode. So if I go back in the scene, all your scenes are there the way they were. And keep in mind, you know, like I mentioned, you can do this for any parameter. Remember how we set the noise gate on input 1 earlier? So if I go into if I hold on the noise gate here on input 1, I can also do this with any of the input gain. I can do it with the noise reduction. And I can set those to different scenes as well if I wanted to. Let's just say I want a higher input gain on scene A. I come into scene A over here, bump it up, and then we're good to go. And then in scene B and C, it'll be something else. So yeah. Let me go ahead and unassign those. That's how you unassign it. Okay, I'm trying to think if I left anything else. All you gotta do is name your preset, save it, and yeah, you're essentially good to go. That's basically it.